All right, let's kick off this deep dive. And today we're looking ahead to the 2025 British and Irish Lions tour. We've got this really interesting opinion piece from rugbypass.com, and the title's a bit of a mouthful, but it really kind of sets the tone, I think. Like it or not, this Lion squad will be Irish. They deserve to dominate. So
Mhm.
yeah, buckle up because this article dives right into some bold claims.
Oh, yeah, the author's not holding back at all.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to unpack their reasoning, I think, and see how it stacks up against, the current state of rugby.
Right. So they're basically saying that Irish players aren't just going to be like well represented on the 2025 Lions squad, but that they're going to dominate it and that they deserve to. What's the basis for that argument?
Okay, so first, we need to sort of set the stage right. What are the Lions? So for anyone who might not be completely familiar, it's this combined team from England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. And they go on tour every 4 years. It's almost like a rugby supergroup, bringing together the best players from these rival nations,
Yeah,
which is pretty unique when you think about it in the context of professional sports.
definitely special. Yeah. And the author actually makes this funny comparison. They say it's not like an egg and spoon race, meaning that the Lions tour is not just about showing up and getting a participation trophy.
Yeah, they're there to win.
Exactly.
And the author's point is that Ireland deserves to be leading the charge. They point to Ireland's consistent wins in the Six Nations, their current #1 world ranking, and their ability to compete with, the top teams like South Africa.
Okay, so on the surface, a pretty strong case. But there's this one big counter-argument that always comes up with Ireland, right? The World Cup. They haven't made it past the quarterfinals. Does that weaken the author's argument?
It's a fair point for sure, and the author doesn't ignore it, but they counter by highlighting Ireland's consistency overall and the depth of their squad. They're not a one-trick pony. It's not
Yeah.
just a handful of star players. There's talent throughout the team.
Yeah, the author actually goes as far as saying that Ireland has one of the deepest squads in the world, second only to South Africa. And they even paint this picture of a potential Lions starting pack with like 8 or 9 Irish players.
Yeah, now that's a statement. I can already hear the fans from the other nations getting fired up about that one. But if you look at some key positions like prop, hooker, flanker, you have to admit Ireland's got some serious contenders.
Yeah.
Guys like Todd Furlong, Dan Sheehan, Andrew Porter, Todd Barron, Kellen Doris, Josh Van der Flier, all world-class and in their prime.
Right, so we're starting to see how the author's building their argument, but it goes beyond just the numbers. The article also gets into how these Irish players under Andy Farrell, who of course also coaches the Irish national team, could actually shape the Lions' styles play.
Right, that's where it gets really interesting, because the author identifies these key selection dilemmas that Farrell's going to face. And these decisions could have a massive impact on how the Lions approach the games against Australia. For example, at fly half, the kind of playmaker position, does Farrell go for someone who's known for their running and attacking flair? Or someone who's more tactical, relies more on kicking and game management?
Yeah, picking between those styles at fly half, that's going to set the tone for the whole team.
Yeah.
And then there's the back row, which is another crucial area, where Farrell's got some tough choices. Does he prioritize power and physicality? So players who are really focused on winning those collisions and disrupting the opposition.
Or does he go for something more balanced? Picking players who are comfortable with the ball in hand, can link up with the backs, and contribute to a more fluid attacking style.
These are the kind of decisions that will keep Lions fans up at night. And there's this one selection debate in particular that the author seems really fired up about, the inside center position. Will Farrell go for the power and directness of Bundyaki?
Or will he opt for Sione Tuipulotu, who's maybe a bit more versatile?
Yeah, the author really likes Tuipulotu. They even use this phrase, a bit more of the bungee stuff.
Bungee stuff. I like that.
Yeah, it's catchy, right? But what does it actually mean in terms of how Tuipulotu plays? And why does the author think that style might work so well against Australia?
Okay, so I think when they say bungee stuff, they're talking about Tuipulotu's ability to sort of do the unexpected. He's not just a one-dimensional player. You can definitely crash the ball up and gain those hard yards, but he can also offload the ball to support runners, make clever passes, even create line breaks with his footwork. And against a team like Australia, who are known for their really aggressive defense, that kind of unpredictability could be a real game changer.
So the author's not just saying pick lots of Irish players. They're also advocating for a certain style of play, and they believe that players like Tuipulotu embody that style.
Exactly. It's not just about the quantity of Irish players, but their potential influence on the game plan. and their ability to lead the team to victory.
Okay, but I'm sure not everyone's going to buy into this Irish dominance idea.
Oh, absolutely not. Lions selections always spark debate, and the author even admits they could be wrong. But that's what makes this deep dive so interesting. We're taking this provocative opinion, breaking it down, and considering what it all means.
That's what makes the Lions Tour so great. It's not just the rugby itself, it's those passionate conversations, the different viewpoints, and that shared love of the game that unites fans from all four nations.
Yeah, speaking of different viewpoints, the author does address the potential pushback, particularly from English fans who might not be thrilled about the idea of Irish dominance. They actually make this funny comparison.
Yeah, about the switch in European rugby coverage,
Mhm.
from BTT&T Sport to Premier Sports, suggesting that, English fans, like everyone else, sometimes have to adapt to change.
It's a lighthearted way of acknowledging that national pride runs deep when it comes to the Lions.
Yeah.
And the author's prediction is definitely going to stir up some strong feelings.
And that's exactly what we'll be exploring in the next part of this deep dive. We'll delve into that potential backlash and look at the bigger picture of the Lions Tour, those historical dynamics between the four nations, and the unique challenges of blending different playing styles into a cohesive team.
Definitely a lot to unpack there. We'll be back soon with part 2 of this deep dive. All right, welcome back to our deep dive looking at this upcoming British and Irish Lions tour. And as we discussed earlier, this author from rugbypass.com has made quite the prediction about the potential for Irish dominance.
Yeah, and it's got everyone talking, that's for sure. But I'm kind of curious about the tactical side of things, too, like how does the author actually see the Lions playing against Australia?
Well, they make this interesting observation about the Australian team, strengths and weaknesses. They say that Australia's pack, while it's getting better, it's maybe not quite at the level of South Africa or New Zealand. So that gives Andy Farrell, the Lions coach, a bit of tactical flexibility.
So you're saying he doesn't necessarily have to go with like a super power-based game plan, focused on just dominating the scrum and the line-out.
Right, exactly. He could maybe go for a more expansive style. One that really utilizes the speed and skill of the backs, creating try-scoring opportunities out wide.
Okay, I see. And this kind of ties back to that discussion we were having before about the selection dilemmas that Farrell's facing, like
Yeah.
at fly half, for instance. Would a more running-focused player like Finn Russell from Scotland fit into that expansive approach?
He could, definitely. Russell's known for his creativity, his ability to unlock defenses with his passing and his running. He's a very different type of fly half compared to someone like Owen Farrell,
Yeah.
who's more of a tactical kicker and a strong defender.
Right. So if we see Russell get that starting spot at fly half, that might be a signal that the Lions are leaning towards that more open attacking style, which I think would be pretty exciting to watch, especially against a team like Australia who also love to play with pace and flair.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But as the author points out, there are other decisions, too, that are going to shape how the Lions play. The back row, for example, is really crucial. Do they pick players who are mostly about winning those physical battles, securing turnovers, disrupting the opposition's attack?
Or do they go for players who are better on the ball, who can link up with the backs and create those scoring chances?
Tough choices for Farrell.
Yeah, no kidding. And then there's that inside center decision that the author seems really interested in, Aki versus Tuipulotu.
Right.
Aki being that more direct, powerful option, while Tuipulotu brings that bungee stuff, like the author called it. I'm starting to get a sense of how each of these selections could tell us a bigger story about how the Lions want to approach these games.
Exactly. It's like a puzzle. And each player is a piece. And how those pieces fit together, well, that's the team strategy. And as we were saying, the author believes that the Irish players, with their combination of power and skill and experience, well, they're pretty well suited to a lot of different approaches.
Okay, but even if we buy into this idea of potential Irish dominance, is it actually realistic to think we'll see a Lions squad with 8 or 9 Irish players starting?
It's possible, for sure, especially when you look at the depth of talent that Ireland has in those key positions. But we can't forget that the Lions selection isn't just about picking the best players from each country. It's got to be the right balance.
Yeah.
The right blend of personalities, playing styles. They have to gel as a unit.
And I bet Andy Farrell will be looking at players who've played together before, who've got that shared experience of winning as a team, which might give an edge to those Irish players who are used to playing together week in, week out for both Ireland and their provinces.
Absolutely. That familiarity, and understanding between players, that can be a huge advantage, especially in a high-pressure environment like a Lions tour.
Right. So while the author makes a pretty good case for a strong Irish presence, it's clear that there are lots of factors that will go into those final decisions.
Definitely. It's complex. Individual talent, team dynamics, tactics, even a bit of that intangible Lions magic.
It's what makes it so exciting, all the anticipation, the speculation, the debate. And this Rugby Pass article definitely adds fuel to the fire.
Oh, yeah, speaking of fueling the fire, the author does address the potential backlash to their prediction of Irish dominance, especially, from English fans.
Yeah, they acknowledge that some might see it as like a dig at English rugby,
Hmm.
but they try to be funny about it. They even say that English fans can't always have it their way.
Bit cheeky, but I think it reflects the reality of how Lions selection works. Someone's always going to be unhappy. There'll always be those who feel like their nation isn't getting a fair shake.
And that makes sense. The Lions tour brings out a lot of national pride, and fans want to see their players wearing that jersey. But at the end of the day, you got to pick the team with the best chance of winning.
Right, and that's what the author keeps coming back to. This potential green hue of the Lions squad. It's not about playing favorites. It's about where these nations stand in the rugby world right now.
They point to Ireland's recent success, their #1 ranking, all that. But they also admit it's all speculation at this point. And they encourage people to join the debate.
And that's exactly what we're doing here today. Breaking down this article, looking at the arguments, and seeing what it all means for the Lions tour.
So as we head into the last part of our deep dive, let's shift focus a bit. We've talked a lot about the author's perspective, but now we want to hear from you, the listener.
Imagine you're Andy Farrell, the Lions coach. What kind of team would you build to take on Australia? Power, skill, experience? How would you balance those things? And maybe most importantly, who are your picks for those key positions?
Yeah, that's a fun thought experiment, isn't it? I bet the comments section under this Rugby Pass article is a war zone right now.
Oh yeah, for sure. People get really passionate about Lions selections. The author even kind of preemptively asks people not to burn down their house or threaten their pets if they disagree with the predictions.
It's all in good fun, though, right?
Yes.
At the end of the day, we're all rugby fans, and we just want to see the Lions do well.
Exactly. And that shared passion is part of what makes the Lions tour so unique. The author actually makes a good point about how the tour often transforms fans, you know, from being skeptical and critical to becoming these diehard supporters.
What do you mean by that?
Well, first, everyone's picking apart the squad, questioning why this player was picked or why that one was left out. But then as soon as the team's announced and they put on those Lions jerseys, something changes. The skepticism fades away and this feeling of unity takes over.
So everyone forgets about their national allegiances for a bit and just gets behind the Lions.
Exactly. It's really a testament to the power of this event. It goes beyond those usual rivalries, and it creates this shared sense of pride and excitement among fans who would normally be cheering for different teams. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It shows how the Lions tour can really bring people together. It reminds us that even in professional sports where it's so competitive, there's still room for those shared experiences, those moments of collective joy and disappointment.
For sure. And the author's predictions, whether you agree with them or not, while they add to the anticipation and the excitement, they've given us a lot to think about. This idea of Irish dominance, the decisions Farrell has to make, the unique dynamics of this Lions squad.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's go back to that question we asked earlier. If you were Andy Farrell, what kind of Lions team would you put together to face Australia?
Would you lean into that potential Irish strength? Or would you try to balance things out a bit more, drawing on the best players from all four nations? What style of play do you think would be most effective against the Wallabies?
Those are the questions that will keep rugby fans talking right up until the tour kicks off. And it's that ongoing conversation, that passion for the game that really captures the spirit of the Lions.
Oh.
Thanks for joining us on this deep